This episode is brought to you by Amazon Prime. There's nothing sweeter than baking cookies during the holidays. With Prime, I get all my ingredients delivered right to my door, fast and free, no last-minute store trips needed. And of course, I blast my favorite holiday playlist on Amazon Music. It's the ultimate soundtrack for creating unforgettable memories. From streaming to shopping, it's on Prime. Visit Amazon.com/Prime to get more out of whatever you're into.
This is the sound of your ride home with Dad after he caught you vaping. Awkward, isn't it? Most vapes contain seriously addictive levels of nicotine and disappointment. Know the real cost of vapes. Brought to you by the FDA.
Streaming now on Peacock. Paris Hilton and Nicole Richie are back.
That's hot. Loves it.
For a show-stopping reunion that will prove putting on an opera is anything but simple.
We're really good at this.
One thing's for sure, they won't be upstaged.
Good to have you back. Come on, we've got a show to do.
Paris and Nicole, The Encore, a 3-part reunion special. Streaming now, only on Peacock.
You might actually be the most derivative one of all. I mean, Christ, the same house.
Maybe so. But you forgot the first rule of surviving a stab movie. Never answer the...
I'm bored.
Wait!
And welcome back to Micro Queers. It's our whenever we feel like doing it or whenever a new queer horror film comes out. And I'm Joe.
And I'm Trace, and we are discussing Moisés Romera and Marisa Crespo's queer horror film, culty horror film, You're Not Me.
Indeed, yeah. So, Trace, this is a film that you and I caught at Fantastic Fest in 2023, and immediately we realized, oh shit, this movie's real queer horror, so we gotta drop a micro queers on it.
So, okay, Joe, first question, would you recommend this film?
I would, wholeheartedly. I think it's really pretty. It's well directed. This is, to be honest, it feels like the lesbian version of The Invitation to me.
I was thinking the same thing. So here's the thing. I was kind of warned by you and one of our friends before I'm not warned per se, but just like caveated. This film narratively doesn't really do anything new. Like, I feel like you're gonna figure out what's going on by the halfway point of the film. And a gripe that I do have is I do think it takes a little too long for the film to fully show its hand. But that being said, though, as you said, I think it's very well directed. I think this lead performance from Rosario Tapias, I love this actress.
Yeah, this is... I'm curious to see how this gets received, because the character of Aitana is... like, she's frustrating.
Yes.
You know, she is a woman who, and we learn over the course of the film, folks, we're spoiling the shit out of this movie. So we do recommend it. If you haven't seen it, please go and check it out and come back and listen. But I love that this character is messy. She's had a mental health breakdown at one point. We know that she's on medication that she's not taking frequently. And her behavior throughout this film is bad, but she's also justified.
Well, and so this kind of plays into what we were talking about in our mini-sode all those months ago about, like, you know, horror tropes that gotta go. And I think one of mine was, like, I hate it when it's like, oh, is our main character, usually a woman, crazy, no one believes her. Although I guess for me, it didn't bother me as much in this film because I never for once didn't believe Aitana, and I never thought the film
100%.
didn't believe Aitana, even if, like, the characters around her are like, girl, like, calm down.
Well, here's the thing. Everyone is gaslighting her except for her wife, Gabby.
Right. That's the thing. And granted, would I have maybe liked a bit more closure on that front? Or like, hey, Gabby, just so you know, it's an evil cult.
Yeah, like, hey, Gabby, now we get to go to some serious relationship therapy because you did not believe me and our adopted son nearly got murdered.
Oh, also, I mean, this is like a general thing, but I really like the score in this film and how we get a couple different, like, creepy-ass versions of Carol of the Bells.
Yes. Oh, yeah, because, folks, hello.
Christmas horror.
Christmas horror. So, obviously, the invitation vibes start pretty early because we we start the film with the two women and the baby en route to Aitana's family, and we immediately strike an animal in the road because a bunch of pigs have gotten let loose, and we're seeing, oh, here's a pig with blood on its snout. And I immediately thought, okay, so this is very similar to The Invitation, and I like this idea that the premise for the film is we're secretly going to visit my parents for Christmas. It's a ruse. They don't know we're coming. And then we show up and everything is really fucking weird.
Oh, yeah. The vibes immediately, because it's not her mom that answers. Yeah, her mom doesn't answer the door first. It's Pepita, played by Pilar Martinez, and she's immediately like, oh, you're the daughter.
Uh-huh.
We weren't expecting you. And so, honestly, what's funny is I was like, okay, this must be like the woman that her mom is like a maid for. Like, that's what I was thinking right off the bat.
I was like, wait, has this couple killed her parents and taken their place? Because it seems like they're relatively well off. Like, they're at least middle class. This film takes place in Sao Paulo, and you know, Aitana isn't necessarily hurting for money. Like, they were able to fly back probably at no small expense for the holidays. So I just thought, oh, okay, I wonder if this is a secret home invasion film or something.
Right.
But you very quickly get the feeling that no, this new couple, Pepita and Oriol, who is played by Alvaro Beguena, it seems like this new pair has just infiltrated, like basically shut out other people from Aitana's parents' life, and they've like more or less infringed and moved in. So I thought, oh, okay, yeah, I'm getting a bit of gentle cult vibes for sure.
Oh yeah, and that's the thing. And so it's, but then it's kind of like, okay, so we walk inside, and then Aitana discovers that someone, Nadia, played by Anna Carica, is living in her room, and her parents are treating her as if she was a replacement of Aitana. So then I was kind of like, okay, so are we going into like, so what was going through my head here was, hey, we've got lesbian leads. There might be like a reason for doing this. And because it's Christmas, you know, there are gentle religious undertones here, even though we will hear later someone says, like, I don't care that your daughter's lesbian.
Right.
Are we going to replace our daughter with this new woman because she's not a lesbian? Or are we going to do something with this woman to make our daughter not a lesbian?
Yeah. And I will say, not so much the latter, but definitely the former, because, you know, we're introduced to these two women together. They have a child. So you think, oh, maybe she's just brought a friend home. And then it becomes pretty clear pretty early, nope, this is a lesbian couple. And when she arrives, that tension, particularly around the holidays, right? Which we know is often a difficult time for people who are queer, and they have to go and spend time with parents who aren't quite as accepting. Because like, we haven't talked about it, but Aitana also has a younger disabled brother named Saul, who's played by Jorge Matos. And it seems like Saul is much more comfortable with Aitana. Like, he misses her. She hasn't been home in a while. And they have also never met Gabby. So much of this film is discovery. You're trying to figure out exactly who knows what and where people are coming from. And I really liked how over the course of the film, we discover, oh, Aitana, yes, had this mental health issue, but also she was engaged to a man and she fled before the wedding. And it's clear that there are unresolved issues around her sexuality with her parents. And I loved how the queerness was informing some of the horror, or at least why Aitana thought her parents were not receiving her well. Yeah,
no, a lot of this makes a lot of sense, which again, why it's kind of one of those things where it's like, oh, is she imagining all this? Is she being paranoid? I mean, we do have this kind of fake out nightmare sequence where Aitana thinks she sees Nadia dropping Joao off the roof, or off the balcony, and
I knew it was a nightmare, but I also appreciated how it was filmed because the camera just goes right over the railing as the baby falls. And you just see this baby fall and fall and fall. And you're like, oh, we're going to kill that baby.
I think it's shot well. I do think that I would have been more okay with the inclusion of this scene if Nadia was like part of the
I see.
Cult. Like, it's like, oh yeah, like she's putting this image into her head or something. But spoiler alert, we will learn that Nadia is not in on anything that's going on here.
No, she's actually the only one who isn't in on it because she is actually going to be sacrificed. But I kind of appreciated that Aitana is so fixated on Nadia as her, like, she imagines this woman is literally replacing her in her life. Oh, you've got my old bedroom. Oh, you're wearing my wedding dress to Christmas dinner. She's so fixated on Nadia as an interloper in her life that she's not realizing that her parents have basically made a deal with the devil.
Yeah. Ball, by the way.
Yes. I did like that we were doing not unconventional sacrifices. Like, we've heard the name Ball dropped before. We've seen some of this cult imagery in terms of, yeah, we're delivering speeches at the dinner table and you're wondering if somebody's getting poisoned. Guess what? They actually are, but it's just sedatives because we're trying to knock all of these women out. And then, of course, we get great imagery at the end of the film where we're stringing Nadia up and we are dancing around naked.
The first time I heard the term Ball was actually in Ash vs. Evil Dead, because Ball is one of like the big bad demons of that show.
Yeah.
But so I just looked this up. I didn't realize this. So, I mean, yes, so the term Ball has been taken over into Christianity and Islam, sometimes under the form Beelzebub in demonology. However, Baal is also a Hebrew word. It was a title and honorific term meaning owner or lord in Northwest Semitic languages. So I think it's interesting that Christianity and Islam have taken like a word from Hebrew and made it a demon.
Well, that is interesting. I mean, just on its own, that's very interesting. But it does also, I think, play nicely into this film as the choice of demon or deity that we're making this sacrifice to. Because it's very traditional reasons, we want to be rich, we want to live forever. And we clearly do this often enough that Pepita has a permanent scar on her palm from pledging fealty to Baal. But there's an important line, and I think that this is partially in reference to the queer horrorness of this text.
Right.
But when all of the cultists gather at the dinner table, there's a line where they talk about how they used to be closed, but they're modernized, and now they accept colored people, Jews, and Asians.
Yeah, I caught that too. They didn't say queer people, though.
No, they did not, which I think feeds into this narrative, particularly with Aitana, where she's already feeling like her queerness it's a divide between her and her family.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do like, because you said, it's like a normal thing, like, they want to live forever, you want money. I do like that at least the reason for them wanting to sacrifice Nadia is, I think, understandable from like a humane standpoint. Because the thing is, like, Saul hasn't been disabled his entire life. We are led to believe that he became sick while Aitana was going through her crisis, I think is the word.
Yes, they use crisis all the time.
Yes. But then it's gotten worse lately to the point where he can't even like really lift his head off of his wheelchair.
Yeah, it is interesting, though, where we're prioritizing certain types of characters because we also learned that Nadia is an immigrant and she previously had a drug addiction, which is not that dissimilar from Aitana.
A Romanian refugee.
Yes. Also, there's some very uncomfortable language in the way that Aitana weaponizes this against Nadia. Like, we're using refugee and...
Like, we don't say Romani. I mean, I think she says she's from Romania, but like, again, the biggest things we're accusing her of is theft.
Yeah. It's very like rich white people privilege where, like, to me, a refugee is someone who is literally escaping a country for fear of death or persecution, not to be conflated with someone who is either looking to immigrate or, in this case, it's like, I mean, this is a down on her luck woman. She had a bad relationship with her own family and then was welcomed into Aitana's family. And I don't know, I found it interesting that at the end of the film, when Nadia goes into hiding and they threaten Aitana's baby in place, it's like we need someone who is pure, someone who is innocent, but also people who are defenseless and won't be missed. And the class stuff I thought was very interesting. It's like, oh, we can definitely get rid of this Romanian woman who has a drug addiction.
Yeah, she's just a junkie. Like, no one's going to miss her.
Literally. Yeah, we can just get rid of her. We just have to treat her nicely for a year, like one of the prize pigs that we ate at dinner.
And if you had found Aitana frustrating, it's nice to see her like switch, not even allegiances, but like be horrified. Like, she hates Nadia, but when she realizes what's going on, she's like, oh my God, you cannot do this.
I will say I found the transition between Nadia running up the stairs and Aitana doesn't really know what's going on and Nadia hides in the closet. And then like the switch in Aitana happens to me a little too quickly and it's a little almost confusing what's going on. But at the end of the day, you know, this is about an hour 40. I think it's mostly well paced. I just found this transition into the big climax a little clunky.
I will say, I think there is a version of this movie where the big reveal of the cult happens about 20 minutes earlier. And we have, I mean, look, I like the way it ends because, like, you know, Aitana just looks in horror as Saul stands up off of his wheelchair and their mom is just smiling. And she realizes
because it all worked. Like, she got Rosemary babied.
Yeah, yes, very much so. But again, because there's a part where she's like, she thinks maybe it was a nightmare that she had, and this,
and all of us are like, no, bitch, it happened for sure.
But I do think there's a version though where all that happens about 20 minutes earlier, and we have something else making up the third act of this movie that is maybe the conflict between her and her parents. And granted, maybe that's not as effective as like just the way, because I do think the way this ends is very good.
Yeah, it's happy and grim at the same time.
Yes.
And I did like that. But I can understand that there's probably going to be some people who are going to wish that she had have either fought back, or maybe we killed one of these cultists, or she made her parents pay in some way.
Or seen the personal fallout of what happens with her and her parents. Like, what does she do here, right? Does she just suck it up and says, okay, this is our life now? Or is she like, I can't be around my parents anymore because they just murdered someone?
Well, yeah, and that would be perfectly understandable because she does spend most of the film, I mean, as we said, she's being actively gaslit by everyone except Gabby and Saul, and I guess Nadia, because Nadia didn't know. But there's a bunch of different points where Aitana says, you know what, I can't handle this. I can't handle the way I'm being treated. Gabby, take the kid, we're going to go. We're going to go to a hotel, we'll come back tomorrow, or I'm going to go and see my aunt or something like that. And at a couple of different points, the reason she stays is for her brother. And he even says, take me with you.
Yeah.
So I really like the relationship between the siblings. And I think it would have been fascinating to see, you know, she effectively gets her brother back at the end of this, but also she understands the price that her parents paid to have this happen.
Yes. I also like, and again, I maybe you disagree, but I think there's like a conversation to be had too, where like, a potential conversation she could have with her parents, where she's saying like, this is horrible. Like you are...
You're monsters.
You're monsters. It's immoral. Maybe even saying this is against God. And her parents, they're back. Well, what about you? You're a lesbian. And I think, but again, if we're going strictly based off religion, like they're kind of in the same, they're both sins. So I would have liked to have seen like the moral debate between the two halves on that front.
Yeah, because there is definitely tension around her sexuality. Like, I don't think her mother understands it, even though we're definitely welcoming Gabby and almost to the point of falsity. Like, it doesn't feel genuine. They're kind of like, oh, Gabby, yay, you're here, cool. Right. And as somebody who has, you know, met my in-laws and we're good now, but initially when they met me, they were kind of like, oh, who the fuck are you? What are you doing in our lives right now?
Yeah.
It rings true.
But no, again, I quite like this. I think I wound up giving it a 3.5 because it doesn't break enough new ground for me to for it to blow me away. But I think it's a really well done version of this type of story.
100%. And honestly, I know I've said it several times, but I can imagine watching this and The Invitation as a bit of a culty dinner party double bill. And I think it'd play really well.
Well, and this one has, quote unquote, a happier ending than The Invitation.
True. It also puts our queer leads front and center, which I do appreciate.
Yes, it does. Absolutely. But all right, everyone. Well, that has been You're Not Me. So until next time, we can cross out You're Not Me.
Indeed, and cross out microqueers.